It's the last week of the PDL regular season. But before we get into the matchup, we have a trade to announce. Week 7 was also the trade deadline. That's last week, of course. And I got one move in just under the wire. Quick refresher on the rules in this league. I could have traded any Pokemon on my team to any other team. And I did look around throughout the season to see whether anything stood out to me, but I didn't see any possible trades that seemed to make much sense, and no one ever offered me a trade in the entire season. When you have these strict tiering rules, it can be kind of hard to make inter-team trades happen, though it's not unheard of in this league. But nothing this season. But I also had 4 designated Pokemon on my roster that I was able to swap out for Pokemon that were not on any team. The 4 in my so-called free agent slots. For me, that was Sylveon, Iron Treads, Mismagius, and Slowpoke. Those Pokemon were a lot easier to swap out than anything else on my team, and one of them is now gone. I have dropped Iron Treads and picked up Iron Thorns. The reasons for this are pretty simple, and first and foremost, as we're in the last week of the regular season here, it's pretty clear what teams are going to make the playoffs, I think. There might still be room for a surprise, but it's pointing a certain way. And I like Iron Thorns more into the rest of the playoff field than Iron Treads. I think not every matchup is better for it, but I think it has better matchups overall looking at the entire field. Rock and Electric typing is very strong offensively into a lot of the playoff teams that we're going to take on, or that we could potentially take on, I should say. Including things like the Sun team we'll face this week, the Rain team we faced last week, and the Snow/Hearthflame Mask Ogrepon team that, of course, gave us our only loss so far. There are a lot of those kinds of teams still alive in this league with very strong water types, fire types. You get the idea. And Electric and Rock coverage is very strong into not all, but most of them. To the point where when I was playing some of these teams in the regular season, I even kind of found myself wishing sometimes that Iron Treads was a rock type. There are, of course, weaknesses that come with that typing as well. It's defensively a little bit suspect, but one, Iron Thorns, has an incredible stat distribution. More base attack than Iron Treads means that it needs less investment to do similar damage, and again, those stabs could come in handy. And pretty significant bulk means that I can engineer it defensively in certain ways to deal with certain matchups. And a lot of the weaknesses actually overlap with Iron Treads. So like they're both weak to fighting, they're both weak to water. Nothing really changes there. It's now a double weakness to ground instead of a single weakness, but I don't think that's a huge difference here. The electric immunity is now an electric resistance. That's fine. And it is something like Hearthflame Mask Ogrepon. We've gone from weak to fire to resisting fire, but now weak to grass. We can play with that. We can use some interesting Terra types. One significant advantage that Iron Treads did have is its speed tier. You can see here, base 72 speed actually makes Iron Thorns, I think, one of the slower Pokemon on my team. There is some upside to that, and it spreads out my speed tiers more. Iron Treads was very close to a lot of the other Pokemon that I had in that regard. But it does mean that I can't use like booster speed shenanigans to maneuver around tough matchups. But overall, I think that Iron Thorns is better suited for the playoff field, as I keep saying, for the matchups that we're likely to get after this week. And while it does feel weird to make an adjustment like this when my team is already doing very well, this is our trade deadline rental, right? This is our big push to chase a championship. This is what you do sometimes. You try to make the best moves possible to win. I do like Iron Treads. I do still think it's a very good Pokemon, but it wasn't really performing in the way that I wanted this season. I brought it to, I think, 3 out of 7 matchups so far, and it did win me some games, but it had to work hard for every one of those wins. There were always mind games. It was never straightforward, and I think, although there is some cost, you have to give up something good to get something good. I think it's relatively unlikely that I take a playoff loss and end up feeling like it would have been different. I could have turned it around if I just had Iron Treads. I think that's probably not going to happen. And when looking to upgrade my team, quick review of the Pokemon that I was able to freely swap out. Slowpoke is pretty expendable, but it's untiered. Can't really get anything good back for it within my points budget. Mismagius, I think, is actually very good value for the low C tier pick that it is, and I've been very happy with its role on my team. giving me a special attacker where I'm otherwise kind of short on those, and with Ghost Stab that is not resisted by very many things, as we've seen throughout the season. Plus, I haven't really even dove that much into what it can do in a support role. And then Sylveon, I have maybe not used the best, but it's been pretty solid in its role on my team as well. The only one that was kind of underperforming in the free agent slots was Iron Treads, and to get something strong like Iron Thorns, that's what I had to give up. All that said, I am not bringing Iron Thorns this week. We're going to let it chill on the bench for a bit and see what we can cook in the playoffs, but it's all familiar Pokemon from here in this video. So let's finally look at the matchup. We're taking on the gifted Glimmora. 5-2, as you can see, and those 2 losses were the first 2 weeks of the season. They haven't lost since. I think I said in my draft recap several weeks ago that no one had drafted the duo of Dondozo and Tatsugiri, and that was true, but I'm not the only one who's made roster moves over the course of the season. They picked up, they might have always had Tatsugiri, I don't remember for certain, but they definitely picked up Dondozo in one of the early weeks. And the really scary thing is, Dondozo Tatsugiri is obviously an incredible mode that commands a ton of respect in Builder, but watching their replays, it's really not been central to very many of their game plans. They have brought it a few times, and I absolutely have to respect it, but the biggest threats on this team are the Sun mode. So the Ninetales setting up the Sun with his Drought ability, of course, the Typhlosion throwing off boosted eruptions. The Flutter Mane is an absolute menace if it gets a Photosynthesis boost, and of course it doesn't need the booster energy in Sun. The Brute Bonnet is known for filling a similar role to Amoonguss, but with more offense, in particular on the physical side, and it also can get Photosynthesis to boost that, while it's throwing off Spore and Rage Powder and what have you. Then they have Tailwind from the Fletchinder. They haven't been bringing it very often, I think, but of course it gets priority Tailwind as long as it's at full HP. Doesn't do a lot else, but that's a significant thing. Alolan Exeggutor can abuse Harvest in Sun to stay on the field forever. It also gives them an option to run a Trick Room mode. They don't have a ton of very slow Pokemon here, but they can do something with that and Brute Bonnet, and maybe even unboosted Dondozo. Then you have the Jolteon, giving them an extra layer to their special offense with the electric coverage coming off of a very fast attacker. Base 130 speed is, I believe, faster than anything I have except Barraskewda. Both Jolteon and Fluttermane are naturally faster than anything I have except Barraskewda. Dracloak can, of course, run an Eviolite support set to be kind of a menace in that regard. And then the Diglett is very cool untiered pickup because, of course, it can trap something like my Magmar or my Iron Thorns, if I were bringing that, and prevent them from escaping its ground-type moves. So this is a very good team. Very tough to build for. Has like 2 or 3 possible modes, and it's where it's really difficult to cover for both of them. And then it has some other layers attacked on top of that. And I have maybe not done my most thorough building process this week. I've kind of picked away at it over the last few days, even though I am in first place right now with a few teams breathing down my neck, and I do want that first round bye in the playoffs. We'll see what we get. But I have started off this week with, who else? My Thundurus. This time running the safety goggles over Covert Cloak or anything else. I don't think my opponent has a fake out user. Fair play to them if I've overlooked one. But yeah, it's a safety goggle set to help deal with the Brute Bonnet, Rain Dance to try to disrupt their Sun mode, and then Eerie Impulse is, I think, potentially going to be very important in this matchup because, again, outside of the Dondozo, my opponent's main threats are Fluttermane, Typhlosion, Alolan Exeggutor to an extent, Jolteon to an extent, and then, okay, Eerie Impulse doesn't help into the Brute Bonnet, but it does help a great deal into those other 4. It really could flip the matchup by itself, I think. Wild Bolt Storm for the usual stab attack with a little bit of potential for paralysis cheese, and of course it won't miss in the rain. And then I tacked on Sludge Bomb, why? Because the Diglett is immune to Wild Bolt Storm, and the Brute Bonnet resists it. The Alolan Exeggutor double resists it. I felt like I had room for another move here. You could argue I should bring Electric Terrain when they have the Spore threat. On the other hand, maybe they don't bring Spore because I threatened the Electric Terrain. But I felt like I had room to squeeze another attack into Thundurus' moveset, and Sludge Bomb, of course, picks up the 2 grass types, and it is resisted by the Diglett, but at least it does damage to that and has a chance to poison it. Went with a very specially bulky set. I ran some calcs against boosted Dondozo, and there wasn't really a way to protect Thunderous from that, except maybe with a different Terra type. But as it was, I didn't see a ton of value in investing for Dondozo hits specifically with this Pokemon. I could pour a bunch of defense EVs into it and still not reliably take a boosted Wave Crash. So considering that the rest of my opponent's offense is mostly very strong on the special side, I figured just max special bulk was fine. A little bit with the extra EVs thrown into special attack. And then Terra Steel to, as usual, cover for Thunderous's weaknesses. Pretty straightforward. Actually, as I'm looking at it now, maybe I should run... maybe like... Well, the thing is, if I run Terra Dragon to cover for the Dondozo and the Fire types, then I'm become weak to the Flutter Mane, and I become weak to Order Up. The Flutter Mane I do have Eerie Impulse for. I'm more concerned about the Order Up. I could run Terra Dark Flutter Mane. That would be a fun tech. But looking at your team, maybe I should consider Terra Dragon, because Steel doesn't really do very much specifically in this matchup, and it opens up a fire weakness. I think I'm going to change Thunderous's Terra type. I'll let you know in the battle section like I've done before. But anyway, we'll move on to our second team member, and that is Iron Leaves with a booster speed set. You already know these EVs. They maximize attack investment up to the point where I still get a speed boost from the booster energy. This should enable Iron Leaves to get the jump on speed boosted Typhlosion, like a Choice Scarf Typhlosion, or Flutter Mane that isn't boosting speed, or what's their other fast thing? Jolteon, right. Iron Leaves is obviously, it has some matchup issues into a bunch of fire types and the dark type Brute Bonnet and Flutter Mane. There are matchup issues for sure, but I think that it's valuable into some of their other team members. So of course it resists water attacks from Dondozo and Totskiri and electric attacks from Jolteon. And with a Swords Dance set and boosted speed, if I can get it going, then it has a lot of potential to turn the offensive game around on them and pick up a good number of KOs. I thought about squeezing Leaf Blade into here for the Dondozo, but I feel like the Dondozo, if they do a Dondozo mode, it's definitely going to Terastallize. I don't know what its Terra type will be, but they're not just going to let me pick on the water typing. And Sacred Sword might then be more valuable if it's something like a Terra Steel Dondozo or whatever. Because of course it'll bypass the defense boosts, and then Psyblade and Sacred Sword is fine coverage for Swords Dance set while still giving me the option to use Protect and potentially stall out a Tailwind from the Fletchinder or something like that. Terra Fire, of course, if I'm going into a Sun mode, then that makes Iron Leaves resistant to the opponent's fire type attacks as well as fairy attacks from the Flutter Mane, although not the Shadow Ball. But it's very strong defensive type here, and it also covers for something like a Will-O-Wisp, Ninetales, or Fletchinder, or even Typhlosion. Next, you already saw the Rain Dance on the Thunderous, and you probably know what's coming with that in this matchup. I am bringing Barraskewda. Max speed, because Barraskewda has 1 point more base speed than Flutter Mane, so if they don't have a booster energy, well, okay, so it's faster than unboosted Flutter Mane, always. And if I get the Rain up and they don't have a booster energy, if they're relying on the Sun for photosynthesis or they're boosting a different stat, then the Swift Swim lets Barraskewda go before Flutter Mane in that situation. The other thing about Barraskewda this week is that Water plus Fairy is very strong coverage. Very strong coverage into my opponent's team, because apart from Dondozo, their water resists are like Tatsugiri, Dracloak, Alolan Exeggutor, and Brute Bonnet, all of which are weak to Fairy. So that's what the Terra Fairy Terra Blast is here for. Barraskewda, in the right conditions, can pretty much sweep anything except the Dondozo. It doesn't do much for that matchup, but the next few Pokemon are all meant to address that. But yeah, if I get Barraskewda going in Rain, it has potential to just run through my opponent's team otherwise. Flip turn, maybe I should switch to like Aqua Jet to pick up a boosted Flutter Mane or something, but I like Flip Turn just as a little extra out against the Diglett. Of course, I can switch Thunderous out as long as that's not Terastallized, because Arena Trap doesn't work on flying types. And yeah, I could just flip turn the Diglett slot or whatever. If I need to get a different Pokemon onto the field, I can get Barraskewda out of there. Like I said, my next 3 Pokemon all have ways to help with Dondozo, and I've already leaked the first of them, so 4th Pokemon overall. That is Sylveon, and it's a different item this week. I have given up the Throat Spray for Citrus Berry, and the reason is this. I calced max defense Sylveon against boosted Dondozo and against some of their strongest special attackers, and there are a lot of hits that Sylveon just barely takes with this EV spread on both physical and special sides. So if they're pairing something like Typhlosion or Dondozo is relatively unlikely, but if they knock out their own Tatsugiri somehow, you know the strats. But if they're pairing something like Typhlosion with a weaker attacker trying to pick up the KO and a weakened Sylveon, then the Citrus Berry might make the difference if Sylveon is double targeted, if this is what I'm saying, between taking the 2 hits and not. And then Yawn is here to, of course, disrupt the opponent's offense if they try to get going with Sun Tailwind stuff or Trick Room stuff or Dondozo. I have this option to force them to sleep if it's Dondozo and it's trapped, or force a switch. Hyper Voice, of course, is just Sylveon's best move. And then I have the Rock Terra Blast, partly to get the jump on something like a Ninetales Typhlosion mode, but mostly just for the chance to KO Fletchinder if I see that trying to set Tailwind. So that, of course, it can still get the priority Tailwind, but it can only set it once if I knock it out with a surprise Rock Terra Blast. So that's mostly what that's there for. Not as likely that I Terrasilize this as something like Iron Leaves or Barraskewda, but the option is there. Up next we have Magmar. I'm running Vital Spirit this week to protect it from Spore from the Brute Bonnet. So that then gives me 3 Spore immunities with the Safety Goggles Thunderous, and of course the natural Grass-type Iron Leaves. I don't think I mentioned that, but of course it's immune to Spore as well. I also have Terra Grass on the Magmar to help it take hits from mainly Dondozo, I think. But also Tatsugiri, I suppose, by extension. But Vital Spirit means that I don't have to Terrasilize to avoid Spore, or Rage Powder, actually, but I think Magmar cares less about that. These Wiggly Bar EVs here, what do they do? The HP guarantees... I think the HP guarantees that it takes a max attack, double target, boosted Dondozo Earthquake before Terra, and then I dump the rest into Special Bulk because of all my opponent's special threats. Follow me, of course, to create an opening for one of these guys to get an attack off, or Sylveon to go for a Yawn. Helping Hand just for general utility. The reason that I said earlier that they might bring Terra Steel Dondozo is that, of course, Clear Smog Magmar is one of my best tools into a stat boosting game plan, and I have brought it a few times, but I'm bringing the Clear Smog anyway to keep them honest. If it's not Terra Steel Dondozo, maybe it'll suffer for that. And then I brought Scorching Sands for the attack this week. I do want to give Magmar the opportunity to get off a burn. I considered running Will-O-Wisp, and I didn't, and the same goes for Flame Body. But also, Magmar's fire coverage isn't amazing in this matchup. It does hit, well, really only hits I think it only hits the Brute Bonnet super effectively, right? But it's really not good into Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Ninetales, or Typhlosion. So the Scorching Sands with the super effective hit into the other fire types and the burn chance on Dondozo, I think, is the better call here. And I've already leaked my last Pokemon, no suspense, we're bringing Persian again. So Persian is the other part of the anti-Fletchinder game plan. If I think there's a Fletchinder lead coming, I can lead Persian Sylveon, Fake Out, Terra Rock, Terra Blast. That's very committal, but I do have the option if I want to use it. Focus Sash means that Persian has a chance to disrupt their game plan in some way if they only hit it with if they only single target it. I think I've brought Sash Persian every time so far, so they could double target Persian, but then that could create an opening for Sylveon or Thunderous to do something disruptive. Terra Fairy is just for the order up immunity, so you can see I'm running Charm on this Persian to lower Dondozo's attack, and I believe it's EV'd to outspeed Adamant Dondozo. I don't think it can outspeed boosted Max Dondozo, but I set this for some kind of Dondozo, and I think it's boosted Adamant. So with Persian going for the Charm, I don't want Dondozo to be able to set up in return. I have Sylveon as a natural fairy type, immune to Order Up, and then, yeah, the Terra Fairy Persian would also be immune to Order Up, so that the Dondozo can't try to start snowballing again. Charm, I've already explained, is for the Dondozo. Might also be good into the Brute Bonnet, who knows. Knockoff to disrupt something like a Leftovers Dondozo or a Scarf Typhlosion or an Eviolite Dracloak. There are a few Pokemon on my opponent's team that would be unhappy to lose their items. And then I didn't feel super strongly about the one remaining move slot on Persian, so I just gave it Rain Dance so that I have 2 Rain Setters so that I can more easily play around the Drought Ninetales, because I think getting rid of my opponent's Sun is potentially one of my best tools in this matchup. It takes away so many boosts from their team, and it gives Barraskewda the chance to go crazy. But that's the team this week. New member and all. Like I said, we're going to let Iron Thorns get integrated into the locker room for now, and we'll see what we can cook with it for the playoffs. In the meantime, we brought some old favorites to try to end the regular season on a high note, try to clinch that first round bye. But whatever happens, this is it for the regular season. Next time is playoffs. See you then, well, after these games. Okay, I think I put the Terra Steel on Thundurus very early on in the building process when I was thinking about like a Power Gem or Icy Wind Flutter Mane. It also resists Fairy, of course, and then I never went back to revisit that decision. I have now changed it to Dragon with all the wonderful Fire, Water, and Grass resistances that offers. It's vulnerable to, well, Flutter Mane and Tatsugiri and Exeggutor. It opens up weaknesses to all 3, but none of them really want to take an Eerie Impulse. And I was going to say something about Order Up here, but they didn't bring the Dondozo. I talked so much about the Dondozo, and it's not here. Instead, we've got Ninetales. Oh, the Typhlosion's not here either. Ninetales, Flutter Mane, Tatsugiri, Brute Bonnet, Alolan Exeggutor, and Dracloak. I'm a little worried about Trick Room stuff, actually. But Ninetales, Flutter Mane also just goes kind of crazy. I think that's the lead that I have to be the most prepared for. And I think I lead Thundurus for the early access Eerie Impulse. There's a tongue twister for you. I also then can get off the Rain Dance and get Barraskewda going. Or make things a little safer for Iron Leaves. I think I bring both Iron Leaves and Barraskewda. I just don't know which one goes in a lead spot. Of course, I could lead Barraskewda flip turn out against something. It's not necessarily a Ninetales Flutter Mane lead. But I think I'm good with that approach if it is. I think I'll bring these guys, and then I'll bring Magmar in the back so I can pivot Barraskewda out to a Fairy Resistance. And we'll see how that goes. It's Ninetales Dracloak lead. I don't know what the Dracloak is going to do. Maybe Will-O-Wisp? Probably gets that right. It's a ghost type. So I probably do want to click Flip Turn here and see what the Dracloak goes for. Magmar comes in pretty safely, and I will go for Rain Dance to boost that Flip Turn. I was thinking I'd Flip Turn into the Ninetales, but if the Ninetales... Well, here's the thing. I guess either Pokemon can protect while the other one goes for Will-O-Wisp. So actually, I can Rain Dance and Protect, and then if they go for a Protect with something, then I can relatively safely pivot on that Pokemon. Let's try that. It does give up some momentum, or like a tempo, I guess would be a good way to put it, but okay, it's Reflect on the Dracloak. The Ninetales protected this turn. I think it's probably going to switch out, but I can throw off a Flip... What I can do, actually, is I can Sludge Bomb and Flip Turn the Ninetales slot, and that way I can cover for a switch. Actually, they can switch... It's probably... Well, it's definitely Storm Drain Tatsugiri. There's absolutely no reason to run Commander. So they can stop my Barraskewda from getting out with that. So I kind of want a hard switch. No, you know what? I'm not gonna overthink this. I'm gonna Flip Turn and Sludge Bomb the Ninetales slot, and anything except the Tatsugiri should take a big hit. And they do actually just let me knock out the Ninetales. So all that thinking, and there it is. I'll go Magmar here. It's pretty safe. Doesn't care much about Thunder Wave. Full Para would be annoying. And of course the Sludge Bomb, the Resisted Sludge Bomb doesn't do much to the Dracloak, but that was meant to cover for a switch to either one of the grass types. Here's the Brute Bonnet now. Fun fact, it can't put either of these Pokemon to sleep because I have the Safety Goggles Thundurus and the Vital Spirit Magmar. So I can just Both of these Pokemon resist Wild Bolt Storm. I'll just Sludge Bomb the Brute Bonnet. With a Helping Hand. To get up their light screen. We could poison it. We don't. A red card. Wow, okay. I don't know what they were cooking, but fortunately I got another Spore immunity in from that. And I think... I mean, I feel pretty safe terrestrializing Iron Leaves and going for a Swords Dance here. I'm just going to do that. And I don't even feel like I need to follow me, although there's not a whole lot else that I want to do here. Neither one of Magmar's attacks does all that much in this position. But I'll fish for a burn on the Brute Bonnet. I might as well. I don't think I need to redirect here. So there's the Terra Fire. They try to Sucker Punch, but of course I didn't go for an attack. Magmar, even paralyzed, really doesn't take much from that Hex, and we do get a burn on the Brute Bonnet. Very nice. And now I'll just... I'm not really worried about the Sucker Punch after that burn, so I think I'll just Helping Hand Psyblade into the Dracloak slot. They go for Rage Powder, but... Oh, right, I'm not a Grass type anymore, so the Rage Powder does work. Ah, okay, I messed up that turn. I also got the Iron Leaves paralyzed. That turn was pretty bad, but here I can make the play I should have made and just follow me Reflect, get rid of the Brute Bonnet. And it's Exeggutor in the back, so we'll go for a Psyblade into that with another Follow Me. They brought both Grass types, and they brought Ninetales without Flutter Mane. Very interesting. Psyblade does half, but of course it has a Citrus Berry. And there's the Trick Room. But they've paralyzed my Pokemon. I don't know how much that is actually going to help them. I'll just go for another Psyblade and Follow Me. Seems pretty safe at this point. Magmar doesn't take much from that Dragon Pulse with all the special bulk I'm running. Magmar survives the turn. I'm just going to try to Psyblade the Exeggutor again. Maybe it has Protect. Okay, it does. But there's really not much risk in that play, as they do finally get rid of my Magmar. So I do still have 2 Trick Room turns to get through. I'll go Thundurus here, and I'll just double target the Exeggutor with Psyblade and Sludge Bomb, as Thundurus comfortably takes that. And the Sludge Bomb doesn't do much to the Dracloak, doesn't get a poison. Last turn of Trick Room, and I can just Psyblade and Wild Bolt Storm, and the Psyblade knocks it out. So game 1 went pretty smoothly, even with that misplay in the middle. Let's jump to game 2. I think they must bring the Flutter Mane to this one, right? I have no idea who this is. I thought maybe it was someone in the league watching, but maybe it isn't. I lead Thundurus again for sure. I don't think I showed the Eerie Impulse last game. I did not. They might be assuming that I have it, but... They also, of course, could bring the Tatsugiri because the Barraskewda is such a threat. But I'm going to bring the same 4 Pokemon. That went very well, and I don't know... I'm sure they have adjustments they can make, but... I am once again alert to the Storm Drain Tatsugiri because... I mean, it speaks for itself. I have such a threat in the Barraskewda. Therefore, against these 2, I'm going to Rain Dance and hard switch to Magmar instead of going for the flip turn. I mean, hey, if they just let me flip turn Ninetales again, that would have paid off big time. And they actually would have... Oh. Yeah, no, okay. They do have the Tatsugiri this game. Okay. Energy Ball, Ninetales with the Life Orb does about as much damage to itself as it does to Magmar. 2 options here. I can Eerie Impulse Tatsugiri, or I can just click Wild Bolt Storm. I am very tempted by that second option. I'm going to do it. I'm going to hard switch to Iron Leaves to resist a possible water attack. They protect the Ninetales, and it's actually Icy Wind, so decent hits on both of my guys. That Wild Bolt Storm does a lot back. And here... here I think I Eerie Impulse the Tatsugiri. I'm not too worried about taking a fire attack because I have the rain up. So I'll just reduce the Icy Wind damage and I'll try to finish it with a Side Blade. Oh, okay. I didn't need to reduce the damage. I could have just double attacked there, but that's fine. They actually go for Weather Ball into my Thunderous. That's a pretty cool attack. Here, against the Exeggutor, I feel pretty safe to hard swap to Magmar. And chip the Ninetales with Psyblade, while the Exeggutor, I think, probably sets Trick Room. I think I covered my mouth for a moment there. My bad if that sounds weird. Terra Poison Exeggutor, so a Psyblade into that would have been huge, but... Oh, and I gave up a lot of Magmar's HP on that Weather Ball. That's not a great turn for me, but... Here... I feel pretty safe to follow me and Psyblade the Exeggutor. Maybe they protect it and knock out my Magmar here, but... I don't have Protect on Magmar, so... If it's going to do something, it's going to do this. I'll try to get rid of the Exeggutor. Okay, yeah, they don't let me. Guess I should have gotten rid of the Ninetales. I saw the play and I didn't make it. That happens sometimes. And Thunderous is low. This game's not going great, to be honest. I think I just try to set up for a Barraskewda endgame, so... I can Rain Dance here. My Iron Leaf's faster than the Ninetales still. I think it must be, right? It's at neutral speed with the boost and the drop. I think. So I'm gonna Eerie Impulse Exeggutor and Psyblade Ninetales. And just try to get through some more of these Trick Room turns. Yep, that Dragon Pulse doesn't do too much after the Eerie Impulse, but I was wrong. I was slower than the Ninetales. That's unfortunate for me. This turn, I guess I will just Eerie Impulse Exeggutor again and protect Barraskewda. The goal here is to try to sweep with Barraskewda, although with the Brute Bonnet coming in, yeah, they're not going to let me do that. So I don't think we win. I don't think we win game 2. Also, I needed a Rain Dance at some point in there. Now I just fish for the double protect, and I don't get it. They Spore. They can't just knock this out. I have shown the Life Orb, right? Yeah. They could have just knocked this out, but I guess either way works for them. Probably shouldn't have shown the Terra Fairy there. That's my bad. Not used to close team sheet, I guess, these days. But we're going to game 3, so that's exciting. Okay, what went wrong there? Switching the Magmar in on the Weather Ball from the Ninetales was a big misstep that I can pretty easily avoid making again. They don't have a ton for my Magmar otherwise. I could bring Sylveon because it's strong into most of their team. Most of their team is weak to Fairy. But it doesn't have a tech for the Spore. I think the Pokemon I'm bringing are okay. I think we always lead Thunderous because we're worried about the Flutter Mane. The Tatsugiri is a problem for the Barraskewda lead. They did make that adjustment in game 2. I'm actually going to lead Iron Leaf's Magmar with Thunderous and Barraskewda in the back. I don't know if the same 4 Pokemon again will work very well, but certainly down to try. And here, I will Terra Fire right away and Psyblade the Exeggutor. I don't really understand why they Terastallized when they did in that last game, so alright, maybe there was a Sludge Bomb they were trying to avoid or something. I don't think this is going to succeed in denying Trick Room, but we can give it a go, and I'll give it a helping hand. Well, as that only does about half, and less after the berry. That crit Heat Wave still does a lot to my Iron Leaves, and they get their Trick Room up. What I can do here is... I think Exeggutor is a serious problem. Maybe I did need to bring Sylveon. I think I need a Sword Stance. And I can follow me to cover that. Heat Wave might still do big damage into Iron Leaves. Oh, yeah. Do not comfortably take another one of those. I'm going to try to get rid of the Ninetales, because I think they might protect Exeggutor here. They do. Ah, we don't take the Heat Wave. Oh, that crit earlier was a real problem. Not good. Guess I'll just Rain Dance, and I mean, Magmar just drops here, but it drops on the second last turn of Trick Room, which is almost as good as we could hope for in that regard. I guess I'll just try to fish for a burn on the Exeggutor, or I could chip it with Clear Smog. Might as well. They go for the Terra Poison now, so Scorching Sands actually was the move. Thunder still takes so much damage, and I actually don't get the Barraskewda in on that last Trick Room turn. Here I'm going to follow me in Wild Bolt Storm. Fish for a Para. Make sure Magmar goes down instead of Thundurus. And I've already used my Terra, haven't I? So I can't even Terra Fairy Barraskewda. Okay, this isn't now. We're not winning this week, but that's okay. It's good information for the playoffs, at least, if we meet this team again. And like I said, this team has been on fire for most of the season at this point. 5, now 6 week winning streak. And that's how it goes sometimes. As I'll just, of course, they have the Rage Powder. I poison the Brute Bonnet to get the Trick Room back up. KO the Brute Bonnet here. Actually, I should have gone for Wild Bolt Storm. Doesn't really matter at this point. There's the Ninetales. I will Rain Dance Liquidation, but yeah, it's too little, too late. Alright, well, they got us with the Trick Room Exeggutor. We'll see if we get another shot at them in the playoffs. We finished the season 6-2, which might still be enough for a first round bye. I certainly hope so, but obviously our opponent here is also 6-2, and it's possible that someone else will be as well, and I'm not at all familiar with the tiebreakers. So there might or might not be a quarterfinal set next week. I guess stay tuned to find out, but in the meantime, see you in the playoffs.